Literally within a week, 2 weeks, this organization, we got a mission statement, we had a 501(c), and it just has bloomed. And since 2009, we have given almost $2 million to children throughout the country, throughout our country, the United States, to pay for their speech and hearing therapy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Therapy Unmasked. Today is a really awesome episode, but it is going to look a little bit different than our previous ones. Today, Nick had the opportunity to talk with the founder and runner of Small Steps in Speech. Her name is Amanda Charney, and she has such a powerful and amazing story behind Small Steps in Speech. If you haven't heard of Small Steps in Speech before, you'll learn more about it in this episode. But basically, it's a nonprofit organization that helps kids fund their speech therapy. So if a child can't afford speech therapy and isn't getting the help that they need from their local school district, Small Steps in Speech will come in and help pay for that speech therapy for that child. They have such an amazing mission and such an amazing story behind the name, and I'm really excited for you to check it out. So without further ado, I'll turn the time over to Nick and Amanda for this episode of Therapy Unmasked.
And you're part of Small Steps in Speech. Tell us about your role in that, and then give us an overview of what Small Steps in Speech is about.
So I am the founder and the executive director of a beautiful nonprofit that is called Small Steps in Speech. Small Steps in Speech was founded in 2009 when, unfortunately, I had a tragedy that hit my life when I lost my partner, my fiance at the time. His name was Staff Sergeant Mark Small, who deployed in the United States Army, sadly, after the effects of 9/11. He just felt like he had a higher calling, and he decided to enlist in the United States Army. He was stationed in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and I'm very proud of his mission and what he did for work. He earned his way up to the coveted Green Beret as a Special Forces medic for the United States Army. He deployed in January of 2009, and he was only there for 3 weeks until we received the tragedy of his passing in February of 2009. I put all of my grief into this organization. Quickly, just about a week after I heard of his passing, we thought, well, what could we do in lieu of flowers? What could we do? And it was actually Mark's stepfather who said, Mark believed in Amanda's work. Why don't we do something where we could have money go towards, ASHA, the American Speech and Hearing Association? And I thought, why don't we just do something, thinking it was just going to be a one-time thing, and just raise money, and we can give it to one specific person in Mark's name who has a speech and language disorder. And I could see, maybe in my own town. I mean, as you all know, there's children, thousands and thousands, millions of children just in our own country who have some type of speech and language disorder. I thought, all right, I'll just give it to one specific child. And then all of a sudden, literally within a week, 2 weeks, this organization, we got a mission statement, we had a 501(c), and it just has bloomed. And since 2009, we have given almost $2 million to children throughout the country, throughout our country, the United States, to pay for their speech and hearing therapy. Wow. It's pretty amazing.
That is pretty amazing. And such an amazing, foundational story to all of that. It's just beautiful, actually.
It is. It's a very unique story because you have the empowerment of Mark. His name was Mark Small, and the name of it is Small Steps in Speech. So he actually came up with that name for when we were to get married. My name would be Amanda Small. And he thought, all right, well, if we have kids, you could just work from home and you would name your private practice Small Steps in Speech. So he actually came up with the name. And then I just thought, all right, well, if that's not going to happen, let's start this nonprofit that has a part of his name that will forever live on in this foundation, helping so many kids in his name and his memory. And when you think of being a speech pathologist, you don't automatically, it takes years, sometimes a lifetime, for these children then going into early adulthood, that could take the rest of their lives to master a goal or whatever it may be. When you think of small steps in speech, it's really ironic how the whole story came apart, and then just the name, the mission of what Small Steps in Speech really is for these kids.
I mean, there's so much symbolism behind it, but there's also so much symbolism in just even the name and what you guys are about. So that's just remarkable. Yeah, thank you for sharing it with us. And we happened upon Small Steps in Speech, and we have several clients that come to our clinics that have made parts of Small Steps in Speech and have used those services that you provide. So we wanted to meet with you and understand more about what you do and why you do it. And it is even better than what I thought. So that is truly remarkable, and I applaud you for what you're doing in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. And the beauty of Small Steps in Speech is it is based on all volunteers. So it is every single person who works, or I shouldn't say works, who volunteers on the board works full time. So I work full time as a speech and language pathologist, and Small Steps in Speech is our passion. We have our secretary, she works full time, and then she does this volunteer work. Our treasurer works full time as an accountant, and then she does this as volunteer work. So that's also what makes it very unique, is that every dollar that gets donated to the foundation goes directly to help these children. There is no overhead cost where I'm getting paid as a director or the founder. Our president does not get paid. And we actually give back to our own foundation. So when we have those fundraisers, we pay for our own way to go to the fundraiser, because we believe in our own mission to also give back, in addition to our time that we're also giving to these kids.
I'm assuming that a lot of these people that are donating their time, like, they know you personally, but they also feel strongly about what Small Steps in Speech is doing in the world. And can you tell us more about how do they attach themselves with such passion to what you're doing?
It's beautiful. I mean, we just met on Monday night, a few nights ago, and we were able to grant 33 children just this quarter to pay for their speech therapy. And this is children who may have a deductible of $10,000 and they can't pay. And we just granted that child 6 months of free speech therapy. So we gave 33 children just this quarter the gift of free speech therapy. And then we will do this same thing in December to also give a gift of speech therapy in December. So we meet 4 times a year, and we give about 25 to 35 grants per quarter to children. And we couldn't do this without our volunteers. So many of the volunteers, yes, I do know, but there are a handful of volunteers that I do not know who have just reached out and said, hey, how can I volunteer? And that's the beauty. With technology now, we're able to have a satellite dish. We're able to meet virtually and to give people who want to volunteer an ability to do something with such a powerful organization and foundation. So there are people who I have never met who also play a beautiful role in this foundation. So that's where, we're so grateful, because I can't do this alone. We can't do it with just 4 people. There are so many people on this board and committee that give back. And for that, the foundation still wouldn't be here all these years later giving this much money if it wasn't for the volunteers.
Right. And you have such a higher and nobler purpose. And people see that so readily and just want to be part of it.
That's what's so beautiful. You have a 2-way street. You're helping keep a man's legacy alive who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country of a fallen soldier. And then you're also helping children with disabilities. And when you think of communication, that is key. If you don't have a voice and you cannot communicate, the power of just saying yes and no, your wants, your desires, what you may need, that is crucial. So we're giving back to those children and their families who can't afford speech therapy, but yet we're also keeping a man's name and legacy alive.
That's so great. Tell us a little bit more about speech therapy and what it means to you in particular.
So speech therapy, like I was just saying before, it's such a critical part of communication. So some people are unable to speak if they have a diagnosis of autism and they are deep within the spectrum, or they may have cerebral palsy where, musculature, and they just cannot produce speech. We are able to provide a voice technology device where they're able to speak. If they can't do it motorically with their mouth, we'll be able to provide them with assistive technology where they have a computer and we could teach them how to communicate with a device. And we've given therapy for that. We have given, when you think of communication, speaking and fluent speech. There are children out there who have severe stuttering, and the anxiety and the fear of speaking to other people and to other children and their peers at the workplace is frightening when they're stuttering. We have provided children camps to go for weeks or during the summer to try to pay for their therapy and to learn the strategies that it's okay to stutter. And if you do, here's some strategies to try to educate other people on kindness and how it is to communicate. Yeah. When you think of speech therapy, it could be expressive language disorder. It could be processing. When you think of speech and language, the umbrella is so big, but it's so large. But the main goal is, can we help them communicate more effectively to their peers, in the workplace, wherever it may be.
Right. And we've watched that, like with our speech therapists here, we've watched that change lives. Like it literally changes lives when they have a voice and they're able to communicate. Can you tell us a little bit about the phrase, everyone has a right to communicate?
So that's my own personal little motto. I put that on the bottom of all of my signature pages as well. And I just think that is, it speaks it all. Everybody, whether you have a disability, you don't have a disability, whether you are a celebrity or somebody who stays home, everybody has the right to communicate. This is why we live in this beautiful country. This is why Mark gave his sacrifice, so that everybody has the ability to communicate and to produce whatever their method of speech may be, whether it be their hands, a sign language, maybe it's using their voice, using a voice prosthesis of some sort. But every single person has a right to communicate. And my job is to ensure that these families are not struggling paying for speech therapy, which could be such a struggle for so many people. They're putting their home on a second mortgage to try to pay for their therapy. And that's where we try to come in and alleviate a little bit of that grief for that family to pay for their kids' therapy.
Yeah, because they have the right. I love it. When we saw that, we were like, oh, we've got to ask her to talk about it. It's amazing. So powerful, everything that you're doing. One of the things that we focus on at Ability Innovations is that we are play-based. And I've talked a lot with speech language pathologists in the past about how does play encourage communication and language. Can you speak on that for a minute?
Sure. I mean, there's evidence-based practices out there where floor play, all different types of play brings out communication in somebody. Even laughter is a form of communication. If they're laughing, if they're crying, they are telling you, I'm having a good time or I'm not having a good time. So so much of that comes out just on the floor through play. You may be playing with cars and you're doing motoric with just your body. They're communicating in a way, even if they're not using their voice. So play-based therapy is huge for children, but even for middle school students, adults. Everybody loves some sort of play, and you have to go on the child or the client that you're working with on what's motivating to them, and then find that play to try to bring out whatever language you're trying to get. But play-based therapy is essential on so many levels, I feel, and I believe, and I've seen it work with so many of my own clients.
Yeah, we see that as well. And we see that there's so many people that it just kind of sparks that desire and that inner motivation to communicate, especially with the therapist, when they're actually doing something that the kid feels comfortable because they're playing or they're doing something leisurely. Like they just seem to communicate more.
And the other great thing is, if a parent's able to be part of that play, then they can carry over that play at home outside of the therapy environment to also try to increase the language in functional settings outside of the therapy environment. And that's really our role as a speech pathologist, is to not only work with the client, but the family to work on carryover outside of the therapy environment. I mean, we can only do so much within an hour, a half hour session. It's really then up to whoever's going outside of the therapy room to encourage that language that we've just provided with the client.
Reinforce it and generalize it. The parents are key to that. In your practice and in the things that you do, how do you encourage families and parents to be more involved?
Well, that is sometimes that's a missing link, and it has to be motivation on everyone's part. It has to be motivation on the therapist's part, on the client's part, and also whoever the caregiver is for that child. So just educating them, sometimes I always use the comparison of if us as an adult who doesn't have a disability, say we break our leg and we go to PT and our physical therapist says, you have 6 weeks of therapy after your cast is removed. We're giving you the strategies. You have to go home and then strengthen that leg. I say the same thing to my parents. I am going to provide you with the strategies at home. You can come in and observe. I'm going to show you some of the techniques that works and how you can improve that. But it's really up to you guys to carry over and reinforce all that we're teaching in the home environment. If a parent isn't able to come in, then I could videotape the session and have them use that as a tool. I can write notes. I could provide strategies, carryover, worksheets, whatever it may be, to try to just reinforce in the home environment. But carryover is a key to this success.
I believe that full-heartedly too. Like it's parents that see more of the communication and more of the language building. We just get our snapshot as therapists, right? So it's great to encourage that. Do you have any experiences where you've worked back and forth with families and you've really seen success in that interaction back and forth with families?
Oh, 100%. I mean, these are the kids that no longer warrant the therapy. They've come twice a week and the parents are on board. The grandparents are on board. They're carrying it over into the playground, bringing them from the play at home into a playground to try to work with their child. And then they no longer need the services. And that's our goal. We don't want these kids to be in therapy forever. Right. Some of them may need it depending on their severity. But the overall goal is to get them out of therapy and to function on their own in their own natural environment. And I have seen it so many times. And that's what's so rewarding in my job, is to say, this was a nonverbal child. This was a child who was in a self-contained classroom, is now mainstreamed and is now doing remarkable, both in and outside of the school room.
And that's kind of what we always want to see, right? We want to see that kids are progressing and then they don't need us anymore. It's kind of a weird part of our profession, but that's the part that we love, right? That's the part.
Absolutely. And then they come back 10 years later saying, I remember you, or even a parent saying, I remember you. Thank you for what you did for my child. Or the person may say, I remember coming to you in speech. I loved it. And now look what I'm doing. So that's also equally as rewarding.
Yeah, I love it. What about like small steps for speech? What drives the word success for Small Steps for Speech and what you guys are doing there?
What drives our success is having partnerships, to be honest with you. We receive hundreds of applications each quarter, and we're only able to grant about a half of those grants. We are partnered with a wonderful organization. I don't know if you're familiar with the Prompt Institute, but that is a beautiful organization that their founder, Deb, was able to come up with using her hands to try to promote children who have unintelligible speech, apraxia of speech. So they've partnered with us for years, and we're able to then give extra funding each quarter for children who just need prompt-based therapy from a prompt therapist. So what we're trying to do is partner with other people from the Autism Foundation, from the Stuttering Foundation, other nonprofits who may want to give us some grant funding. We're running out of funding. We're a very small organization. So all of our funding comes from private donors when we give out different blasts on our social media. So, and we have some small fundraisers that come in. We have a golf tournament every year. We do for Mark's birthday anniversary in August. We try to raise money, and it's always the same people who are always donating. We need to reach other people. And this is why it's so great that you guys are having us speak about the foundation, because hopefully one person might learn the story of Small Steps in Speech by Mark's name, or know that there's a foundation out there that's trying to help other kids. They're at no cost, right? Like all you have to do is go on our website and apply for a grant. We can't guarantee you're going to get the grant based on our own funding and the amount of applications, but there is funding out there. We just need more money, more people, more speech pathologists to know that we're out there. And we're not just giving grants to New Jersey because we live in New Jersey or the East Coast. We have given grants to 49 out of the 50 states, and we're looking to just get to more of those smaller cities, those other kids who need us, because sometimes we're getting the same people who are applying, the same speech pathologists or the practices or the schools. We just want to reach out to more people.
I've got this idea in my head about small steps for speech. Like They may be small steps, but if you've got lots of people making small steps, lots of volunteers, lots of families, lots of people donating, then those small steps can cover so much more ground.
Absolutely. And that's what we always say too. We've received a lot of donations. Unfortunately, if somebody for a funeral, which is so sad, and somebody may say, okay, again, what could we do versus flowers? So we have received so many donations in the name of somebody who else has fallen. And we've been able to give a grant to a child who cannot speak or needs speech therapy. And also in the name of somebody fallen based on their donations. We've given money to teenagers who just hold a cookie stand or a lemonade stand outside. My own kids. I have 2 little boys. On Memorial Day, I wanted to teach my own children the meaning of Memorial Day. It is not a barbecue. It is not the kickoff of summer. Right. Memorial Day is to remember the fallen men and women for our country. And I raised $600 for a lemonade stand and gave it all to Small Steps in Speech. So if everybody did these small little, literally quote, small little activities of, Jeans Day at your school, instead of another Christmas gift, maybe we could give a gift and raise money to Small Steps in Speech like they do for a food pantry. This is giving the gift of communication, giving a child the right to speak again, and to relieve some of that burden for a family who can't afford it.
I hope that there's lots of listeners that are sparking in their interest to say, well, yeah, my kids do a lemonade stand all the time. Let's pay that forward.
Absolutely. And listen, I get a lemonade stand. Maybe the kids want to buy a new toy or they're raising money for something, but just to teach your children that you can also give back is teaching that child a life lesson that you may still want to be able to get that toy or those new sneakers, but yet we're also giving a gift in memory of a fallen soldier and also a child with a disability.
They can learn to look outside themselves.
Absolutely. And we all could do that, right?
Yeah, I agree. And that's why we're in the professions that we're in. I'm an occupational therapist, but I didn't get into occupational therapy because I, wanted to do something for myself. We all got into our professions because we wanted to do something for others. And so what you're doing is even more than that. And it's amazing. And getting other people to do it too. That's great.
It's a beautiful thing. I'm very thankful. I can't do this by myself. I have literally a whole army behind me helping.
Yeah. And all of these people are doing something worthwhile in the world. It restores faith in humanity.
Isn't that the truth? Amen. I agree.
What can people do if they're listening at home and they think to themselves, I want to be a part of this, or maybe speech has made such a difference in my life, or speech has made such a difference in my child's life, and now I want to give back and I want to do something. How do they find you?
So you can go to our website. It's smallstepsinspeech.org. We are on social media. Start at just our website. Like us on Facebook. Like us on Instagram. I'm not big of a social media person, but there's somebody who also is a volunteer who is really in charge of that. If somebody wants to try to help us out, we might not need a volunteer right now, but just volunteering at home by letting your school districts know, by letting other speech therapists know, hey, there's an organization out there. Everybody knows of a child or a family who could benefit from a grant, who can't afford it. Every single person knows, hey, Johnny needs more speech therapy than what the school can give, but he can't afford it. How can I help? That's what we're looking for, is to try to let more families know to apply for a grant, to let other private speech pathologists and practices and hospitals utilize us because there's funding out there. Or if you own a business and you want to give back and you believe in another nonprofit other than these multi-million-dollar corporations and foundations, put your trust in this beautiful little organization. We are here to help, and we have been giving, like I said, so much money, but there's more to give, and we feel like we can reach out, to even more. And that's what we're just trying to do, is to branch out to more cities, more speech pathologists, to help more families.
I think what we're doing aligns so well, because everything that you're talking about, I see this every day in the clients and the kids that we work with and the families, especially I mean, they're so closely tied to, we're right by an Air Force base. And I know that there's a lot of families there, they're struggling because they're living that in that world. They're on that side of Mark Small where they're giving their lives for something that's bigger than themselves. And then their kids are struggling at home with speech and language and communication. And they need it just as much as anybody else.
Absolutely. We've given many grants to children on TRICARE. And sometimes, the therapist that they're getting doesn't accept that insurance. So when that happens, we've paid for that child's speech therapy as well, if that insurance carrier is not covered. But those are the children where, they might have to relocate often. So they're not establishing that positive rapport and consistent rapport with the speech therapist. And that also is where it's so equally important to educate the family, the parents. We have given parents 3-day workshops at the Nancy Kaufman to go and learn from Nancy Kaufman the method of her research to improve communication. And we've paid for parents, maybe military who are traveling to say, okay, how long am I going to be in this city or this town for? But if I can try to help my child, maybe I can. And we've even given grants to them as well.
And I'm sure that some of them are all over the world too.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, and that's great. I know that there's a lot that they have like certain devices that they need or certain things. And TRICARE is usually really great about helping with some of those things, but sometimes there's still a financial burden on the families. And the things that you guys are doing at Small Steps in Speech is able to kind of buffer that for them, of getting those devices or getting that technology that might make the difference. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing all of these stories and all of the perspectives that you have, and especially for sharing what Mark Small has created through you.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the organization. And thank you so much for having me on to spread our mission, to spread more awareness of this foundation. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll get you out to all of our people, and together we can all make small steps.
That would be amazing. Absolutely. Isn't that the small steps? That's all we need to say, right?
Small steps together cover a lot of ground.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And we wish you the best for Small Steps in Speech and everything that you're doing.